Awesome, let's get started. Roll call, Margot Knipple, I am here. Tyler Lane. Absent. Laura Kelly.
Here.
Gary Nelson.
Here.
Tommy Coleman. Absent. Tommy Smith. Absent, and Arlen Gorchowski is absent.
Oh, there's Sarah.
Yeah, she's zooming in.
We have enough for form.
We don't have to take action on the minutes. You know, we can,
Well,
yeah.
that's what I was gonna ask.
yeah, we can move the minutes to the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do that. We will move review and approval of minutes to our next meeting. And we will get down to new business, which is discussion of draft amendments to the Webster County zoning ordinance, transportation corridor overlay zoning district requirements. Jeff, do you have any presentation, or Sarah, do you have?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. So the last time we left off is we gave you a review of this ordinance, and you wanted to put some language in there that addressed, we'll talk about this in more detail. The signage, access management, and compatibility of uses. So where we stand with this right now is, we're at the discussion level still. We want to finish this up. I talked to the county attorney this morning, and we plan on bringing this back for the first, will be a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission November 12th. So they'll be putting together the ordinance amendment, and there's some codification that needs to be done with our zoning ordinance. So this will be all part of that. And you'll be able to take a look at all this and have the public hearing and make a recommendation. So just to kind of go over, I provided you, MSA went in, they provided a lot of information based on their research and their work they've done throughout the state and other areas also on, you know, those three topics, the signage, access management, and compatibility. So when we talk about signage, the way it's written is, that, well, let's just go ahead and step back real quick. So when anybody comes in along the corridor and they propose something, they're gonna be required to rezone, and then we're gonna require to provide that site plan. This is gonna give the Planning and Zoning Commission a lot of authority to say, hey, we like this, we don't like this, based on this ordinance, let's work this out, or whatever. And you know, with these regulations and so forth. So that, you know, that's the beauty of it all. And that's why we're requiring that rezoning and site plan to go together, you know, to make sure that it complies and is satisfied by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the way it reads right now is, yeah, you'll be allowed to have one ground monument sign. If you're a corner lot, you'll be able to have two per road frontage or street frontage. And whether whether that's a single tenant sign or a multi-tenant sign, you're gonna get 100 square feet of signage overall. So, you know, they'll have to work that out. So that's how that reads. So, we really you cannot regulate the content. There's a Supreme Court, ordinance or law ruling that came out a few years back. But that covers that issue. In terms of access management, I know you guys wanted to make sure that, you know, if we had smaller lots that they're required to share, it makes sense in access coming in, so that we don't have, you know, something all cut up and, you know, we're gonna have issues with people turning in and out and so forth like that. And that only makes sense.
Can I interrupt you? I
Yeah.
got somebody trying to find where we're meeting 1 to 10 tonight.
Oh, okay.
Can I take a couple of minutes and go let them in?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
I can go grab him.
What's that?
So I could have gone and grabbed him.
Yeah. We can just hold up.
Okay.
Does that sound good? Yeah,
Just a real quick question.
sure.
The signage, I'm going to assume is similar to what the city of Fort Dodge is kind of done with their sign changes.
Well,
city
yeah,
of
they
Fort
say,
Dodge,
but
like
they're,
a fifth south where they
yeah,
went
they're
away from
encouraged the
tower
monument,
signs.
yeah, so towards the
to-
ground monument.
Yeah, ground monument
Yeah,
signs.
and we still allow them to do a wall, you know, there's allowances for wall signage in here too, so yeah,
Okay.
they get, we gotta be careful on these freestanding signs that we limit them because, otherwise they take over and start looking uglified.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so,
Well, I think what the city's done, especially with Fit South, is it's cleaned it up immensely, I think.
yeah,
It just looks so much nicer.
yeah,
Um,
you can see where stuff has been there and they can't do anything about it, or it's
Yeah.
grandfathered in, but,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
Off the subject, but I see we're getting a Caribou coffee.
Yes.
Yay. Not on the west side of town, but
Is it in the same area where the other four are, or other?
it's, where is it, Laura? Isn't it on Fifth South?
Yeah, so, still fairly close, so we'd still like it on this side of town, but,
Yeah, we would, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty partial to Stella's.
Are you?
I
Yeah.
know.
I love Stella's.
I haven't been to Stella's yet, but
Gotta go.
it's still a step in the right direction.
Mhm. It's one
more-
step closer to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
Getting there, yeah, we're getting there, I guess.
it would be nice if we could get something big to come in on the west side of town.
Mhm.
Would help draw some of those kind of places.
Yeah.
So,
I would love that.
oh,
A Chick-fil-A or something on the west side of town. How about a Chick-fil-A on the west side of town?
That'd be nice too.
Yeah, I would take anything at this point.
Mhm.
It's very frustrating that there isn't more development on the west side of town.
Yeah, when you're saying like,
Yeah.
by Tom Thumb. Yeah,
I'm
or when you talk about-
169 and
Yeah,
7.
Yeah,
That's an area to me that is just begging for
Something,
some
yeah.
sort of development, and,
Agreed.
we've had more things come in,
yeah.
so how many coffee shops is that in Fort Dodge now?
Mhm.
You want to-
Five?
5?
I think 5, yeah.
5?
Sorry,
No,
the lady downstairs told me that you
Yep,
weren't
sorry.
here, so
Oh,
Yeah.
This is Nancy Smallenberger for
Yes.
everybody that doesn't
Yep.
know.
hi Nancy.
Oh, yeah.
Nancy.
y'all know me.
We're talking about coffee shops in Fort Dodge.
Do we need a new one?
We're gonna
Caribou.
talking about how we wish it was on the west side of Fort Dodge.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Tom Thumbs has coffee.
Yes, they do.
But it's not with ice and caramel and sweet cold foam.
Not enough sugar in it.
Yes.
All right.
All right, so, yeah, continuing with the compatibility of use and buffer zones, so this section here gives the Planning and Zoning Commission the authority to really analyze the compatibility and mitigate any adverse impacts, and the way it's written here, instead of requiring a certain amount of buffer, it gives you the flexibility to say, okay, this is based on what this use is and, what's coming in next to it or whatever, this is the buffer we're gonna need. And so, and there's ways to mitigate that, not only a buffer, but, wall, landscaping or whatever it may be.
Is there
So-
consideration as far as how much traffic is on the street type thing?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah,
Okay.
that's all into consideration. Yeah, you
Yep.
take all that in consideration.
Yep.
And so forth. So I was uncomfortable by putting like 100 foot or 200, whatever, specifying that. It's just every use is different, the impacts, whether they're providing outdoor storage or they're doing something outdoor. Or what, or, so,
And is that way a good way that you can kind of explain that? I mean, as a developer comes in, surely they know that. I mean, with these zones, these overlay zones, because of the fact that there are so many different things that we're looking at putting in there, obviously, yeah, different buffer zones for something that might be a little more industrial, commercial versus hairstyling shop,
Yeah.
something like that.
They would deal with that all the time, no matter where they go.
I would hope, yeah.
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 Yeah, and I think it was more of a concern where we had that zoning district that allows both commercial and industrial uses, so. That was the concern with that, with what was going on there. So that's good that we have that in there. I mean, that's all part of the review and something we're gonna have to, be careful of when something does come in to make sure that, it's placed accordingly on the parcel,
Okay.
So that pretty much, I really appreciate MSA providing us, you know, a lot of information on these topics and so forth, but and it was a lot. There was a lot of good information, but you know, I mean, if we were to write all this in here, then it's just gonna take over the code and you know, I kind of dumbed it down, so to speak. So, yeah, I didn't want we took their concepts and dumbed it down. So, but with that, I don't know if you know, now's the time if you have any questions or any issues or concerns. I think what we have, you know, put together is a decent start, you know, when people do come in and it's really gonna come down to the site plan and how everything's laid out, and and again, it's compatibility and so forth, so. And we wanted to make sure that, you know, we address signage to make sure that a lot of that stuff just, you know, we want stuff that looks attractive. Remember, you're putting stuff along a corridor that's got higher trips, people are passing by
Right, right.
and so forth, so. We wanna make sure that it's appealing, so. I think you'll see Kevin Stump come in and modify his sign, I'm sure, you know, which he should, you know, I
He
mean.
has coverage coming from the east, but the other direction, he doesn't have.
No, it's just, that's always gonna be problematic based on, you know,
Yeah.
what's going on there,
Yeah.
so,
And
yeah.
I would think these standards would help. You know, you talk about the first entity to go into a development area. It's gonna kind of help us have people step up their game a little bit. And not just any sorts of development. It's, you know, with the standards, that first place is gonna help set a standard. And then for another developer, they're gonna see, wow, you know, let's see what this place looks like and what we can do as well, if not better, and hopefully, help attract better developers.
So, yeah, like, you know, getting back and, you know, the building design standards, you know, all that's there to make sure that they provide all the information on what that exterior is gonna look like, the materials, the colors, the orientation of the building, that's all very important, you know, so.
so like Kevin Stump, he would have the DOT and us to work with him.
Yeah.
Does the DOT have anything to do with signage?
Not necessarily on the signage, no, I mean, yeah, it can't be in the right of way, obviously,
Right, yeah.
but I mean. And I don't know if they would have. Yeah, I think they just don't want anything in there right away when it comes right down to it,
Yeah, I didn't know anything.
yeah.
If it's not in the right of way, then, okay.
Yeah,
I always thought the interstates were real sticklers on that.
Yeah.
So maybe, maybe the volume of traffic versus,
Mhm.
you know, an interstate versus just a
Yeah,
highway
yeah.
might be a different type of situation.
in terms of. I mean,
Signage,
Signage,
distance from right of ways, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
well, I think it all comes down to visibility and, you know, but, you know, with the passerby travelers to make sure that they can see the sign, you know, and to allow allowance that, a decent allowance, you know, so. Yeah, I mean, these monument signs are gonna be right next to the right of way when they go up and they should utilize their 100 square feet in some way or form, and that's really not a lot. It's a lot. You think it's a lot, but it's, you know, it's gonna be, I think it's a fair amount, so. I mean, if they'd have to request a variance, I don't know what their hardship would be, you know, so.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're actually talking about, you know, the signage itself, so you draw a box around the letters
Yeah,
and the square footage is supposed to the sign, so, yeah. Yep.
And on the lighting, no, I know we talked about this before about whether you have to address rear lighting.
So they'll be required to provide a lighting plan and what they're gonna be using for exterior lighting. And then, yeah, the location of where all their lighting is and the demonstrator will just be a condition that they can't shed the light onto adjacent property, so.
And that'll be different too for
Yeah.
for different types of businesses, or
Yeah.
a different lighting situation.
Well, yeah, and the beauty of it is that, as it goes through the rezoning process, it's tied to rezoning. I mean, we hope to have everything comply with the site plan, but, we can adopt conditions of approval too. To go above and beyond to make sure that, we're not having any issues, so.
Okay,
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I really like about it. It's tied to that rezoning, plus it comes right through here. And, I mean, it's a step that. A lot of not a lot of places, but there, the site plan. Lots of times you just come in, it's administrative, it's approved and you're gone, but, some of these. Are gonna be important, and of course, they wanna get going on it, but, my job is to get it here in front of you as soon as possible, and it's one step here, then one step with the board, and. Two months isn't gonna take, this isn't that long, really, by the time it's all said and done, so.
we talk about this for the overlay areas. What if zoning was like this all over? With these sorts of checks and balances?
The zoning.
Yeah.
Like your standard, your straight zoning we have out there in rail. A lot of it applies, I mean, you think about it,
I mean,
you
I'm
can,
just
you
curious
can
if it-
adopt conditions of approval, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
I mean.
Like we did
if
for
this-
Kevin Stump, we adopted conditions of approval for him, we had to get a bunch of,
Okay,
so. Mhm.
okay. I mean, if this goes well, which I hope it
Yeah.
does. As far as bringing in development and bringing, people in to do things in the corridor overlay areas.
Mhm.
I would have to then question, is that a better way to do zoning in general? I don't know, maybe Sarah thinks that's,
It's almost like, well, it's almost. Plan developments are always tied to a rezoning, so that gives you the authority to. A lot of authority to make sure that that site plan looks good and provide conditions, we don't have a PUD ordinance, that's something in the comp plan that. We're gonna explore, not only residential, but possibly commercial. And so, that gives them a lot of flexibility on their setbacks and height, and it's just really the form, hey, this is what they're proposing, does it fit? Does this make sense, okay, they wanna move the building closer to the road and they wanna, and maybe they'll put in more landscaping or something, it's kind of a give and take when they do those types of things. And, you're giving a little bit here, but you're, hey, you're getting a bang for a buck here because of the aesthetics and the look and the appeal, what they're doing, so. We'll take a look at that in the future, I'm sure, definitely, residential. Which I think we should. To. Cluster the density and. Once you take a look at the land, you might have a wetland that feature that you want to preserve or some nice native habitat instead of tearing it all out. Making sure that, hey, they're gonna get their density, but yeah, there'll be a little bit smaller lots and. There's some good that comes out of that because you're decreasing the infrastructure too, and that's gonna save the cost. And there's good and bad about, density, whether it's, but if it's something that looks good, fits good. Where it's being proposed, neighbors like it. So.
all right. Anything else on that?
Nope, so we'll be bringing this back for a public hearing, like I said, November 12th. I believe that's it, 14th, November 14th, yep. And, we'll go from there.
Okay. It's just when you talk about it and when Sarah's talked about it, it sounds so, forward thinking. And it sounds, it's like, it just sounds so much better than just having, here's our big book of rules. and-
Well, yeah, I
you
like
know.
the, I really like the idea of the planning and zoning commission, and I've always wanted that right when I walk in the door here, is to give you more authority and, to take a look at stuff and. And,
It's,
and be that first line of defense, before it gets to the supervisors,
it reminds me of what I've always said about the city of Fort Dodge, that rather than just allowing everything, the city of Fort Dodge started to say, no, we're gonna get specific and we want certain things in certain places and we want it to look a certain way. And when they started doing that, that's when I think a lot of these things happen. And I see this as doing kind of the same thing with the county. Rather than just opening it up and saying, yep, we just need all the development we can get, by saying, here's what we'd really like to see, and getting a little more specific about it. And asking, when you talk about just even a plan development for housing, and you say, okay, well, I see your plan, but with a feature, a land feature or something, we'd really like to highlight this land feature and work with us on that.
Yeah.
That to me says that's us taking a more active step in saying, here's what we want our county to look like.
Yeah.
And here's what we bring to you is, just that aesthetic. So, and I don't know, Sarah, that might be off base, but it just,
No, I think so. To Jeff's point, I think it helps a lot to have guidelines that then direct the developers towards the planning commission, so that there is some flexibility and some oversight on a case-by-case basis. And that it prevents kind of what you were talking about in the meeting that led us to the incompatible use ordinance. So instead of saying you absolutely cannot have any of these incompatible uses within the same district, you would have to have 10 to 20 different districts in order to keep those separated. So instead of making it more complicated with all of these rules, like Jeff said, having some guidelines of what should be happening, and then giving some more agency to you as a commission to provide guidance and oversight on it, allows for a lot more character control, which the aesthetic and the safety are primarily the two things that you want to look at when you're thinking about development in your municipality. So I think Jeff has a good direction here as far as helping with those two things.
good. I think so too. I just, like I said, I've seen that in the city of Fort Dodge, and I don't know if anybody else has seen that. It just seems to me like when the city started buying properties themselves, rather than letting them sit and get dilapidated, the city took control, and the city said, no, we're gonna, tear these buildings down or take care of some of these undesirable areas and start to make them a little more desirable. Well, that kind of started the ball rolling with everything else. And I think what Jeff's talking about, being able to work with these guys on a kind of an individual basis, as opposed to saying, well, here's our zoning regs. Knock yourself out. You know what I mean? It's then you're working with them, and you're drawing that in and getting the people more involved, hopefully.
Absolutely. And I've always found that when there are very detailed regulations, like Jeff said, the big book of regulations, someone's going to find a loophole, and you're still going to get development that you didn't want. So it's
That's
just
true,
easier and more efficient to give the commission some agency and provide guidelines without allowing for those loopholes, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you sit down, if you sit down with anybody's regs, I'm sure, you can, and that almost seems like that would just take more time and money to try and do, as opposed to just work with us and,
We know there's things we want and there's things we don't want.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to form, and that's been the focus of planning over the past 2 or 3 decades, as opposed to a bunch of, like Sarah said, regulations, 200 feet from that, 100 feet from that, or trying to figure out what that distance is, when it may not apply to everybody.
Yeah.
It might apply to somebody, but it might not apply to everybody. And that's not fair, in my opinion. So, and then you start getting some cookie cutter stuff sometimes, and it's just, so. Yeah.
okay. Awesome.
Okay.
So the rest of what you sent out in our packet then was just, basically the redo it from the last meeting.
Yes,
Yeah.
so the county attorney will put all this together along with, it'll be put in the zoning ordinance itself, and then it'll be all adopted.
Okay,
This is a component of the zoning ordinance, these overlay districts,
okay.
so.
Have you had any comments from the supervisors on where we're at in the planning process?
Not recently,
Okay,
no, and I just don't like to be rushed a lot, you know, I mean, I like to take our time with you guys, and I don't feel like I wanna be rushed with you guys at all. Cause you guys play a very important role, so, I know where we wanna be, and I think by the end of the year, we should have everything adopted and in place, which is good, and that's when I came into this year, it's like, I think we should be able to have all this wrapped up by the end of this year, I think that's definitely realistic, so.
okay,
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that, we ran the process accordingly and all the public input we received.
did you receive any comments? Did you or Allison, either one, receive any comments after that had gone to the Board of Supervisors?
The,
The redoing the comp
we're
plan?
doing, no, they were just, their issues were with the maps in there.
Okay,
Yeah, and cleaning up that, and the MSA did a good job of, making sure that those were more clear and more legible and bigger maps, and we put some maps on single pages and so forth. So eventually, I'll want to get with Andy McGill and get that on our Beacon website, these overlays and so forth like that. So that's gonna be something we'll tackle later this year, and definitely get, by the first of the year, we'll have those overlay zones in there.
okay, is that anything that MSA will be participating in, or will that just be our?
That'll
our
be us.
in-house tech?
I think our in-house tech will handle that.
Okay,
Yep, once I get all that to him, so,
okay.
Yep.
Awesome,
yeah,
all right.
Yep.
Laura? Laura, have any comments?
we can't hear her.
You're muted,
There.
Laura.
There we go. Sorry, guys. No, I think it sounds good and sounds like something to move forward with, and I agree on needing to make it more clear, so.
Sarah, anything that you'd like to add?
No, I don't have anything tonight. I'm just here to hang out and listen to all of your ideas on it, see if there's any other revisions that you wanted to look at, or what your thoughts are with it.
Is this keeping with your schedule as far as end of the year?
Yeah,
Okay, good. Yeah,
Yep.
we're on- Yay.
Good.
All right, well, if everybody's okay with that, we can end our discussion on our new business.
Yes.
Unless you have, Jeff, anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, all right. And I don't know if Mrs. Schmalber?
Oh, the only news I have is the drill rig is gone. They're no
All up
longer
there.
drilling.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
good, good.
But they are taking test samples. They're analyzing samples that they've pulled out.
Okay,
That's all I know.
okay,
The,
awesome.
they vacated the field.
Okay. So.
Did
No,
you?
we went out there, Allison and
Okay.
I did, and it was interesting. We got into the trailer there, and they were drilling, they had been there a year ago
Yes.
drilling. And they told us they went down like 3,000 feet,
Mhm,
and they said, well, we're trying to get down to 5,000 or 6,000, was it?
mhm.
And they were like almost there, they're like 100 feet away, and it was like, it's
There.
gonna happen tonight
Yeah.
at midnight, and I said, okay, so I don't know what the results are, if they were able to find carbon, I believe that's what they're looking for, that deep or not, so I mean, hydrogen, is it
Yes, that's what.
hydrogen, so.
What was your review of the site as far as safety, public safety, sanitation?
As far as sanitation goes, they had porta potties out there.
Okay.
It looked like an oil rig. in the
Yeah,
middle
it
of a
really did
cornfield.
look like an oil
I
rig,
mean,
yeah.
It
Okay.
wasn't like a super clean area, but they're digging down. I wouldn't expect it to be. It looked like an average site. I mean,
Okay,
Yeah,
so you didn't see anything that we as a commission need to address?
no, it's
Okay,
the temporary use, I mean, yeah, it's kind of out middle of no man's land. I mean, there's no house right around there immediately, so. I just, and I think whoever owns the property and with their agreement, they'll restore it back to. Unless they said if we find it, we're gonna cap it. It's like, okay, it's like. Yeah, and they're gonna put up some type of small structure, so it's like, okay. We need a building permit for that structure, but let me know, so.
I'd heard Bob Van East owns the land.
Yes.
Yeah,
Does he? Okay.
that's what I heard.
So yeah, we just want them to be neighborly, that's for sure, you know,
Okay.
out there, there's no doubt about it, you know, it's something like this, these. When we've had discussions, there's a lot going on in the rural area that's, hasn't been going on 2 decades ago that. You know, a lot of different types of stuff, so,
As long as you've both been out and looked at it, and if you don't see, I mean, you make the comment that, well, it's not near a house. Well, what happens when it does get near a house?
oh yeah, no, I know.
You know,
Yeah.
you've at least seen kind of what they're doing, and if you feel that we need to address anything in any way,
Yeah.
I guess I'd rather do it before the fact than after the fact. If that makes
Mhm.
sense, is, you know, one drilling setup like that is one thing. If we end up with 7 or 8 or 10 of them, you know, with a lot of angry, and, you know, rightfully so, angry, neighbors, I want to be prepared for that, I guess.
Mhm.
So. All right,
Okay,
all right. If nobody has anything else, I will take a motion for adjournment.
I'll move.
All right, Gary motions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. All those in favor of adjournment, vote aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Mhm.
And no opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where's the
Thanks.
baby?
Where's the
Yeah,
baby?
she's,
Hi, Sarah.
She walked.
she's,
November.
Okay.
Sarah.
yeah. No,